ICE agents just arrested a 6-year-old cancer patient at an immigration courthouse. A child with leukemia taken from a courtroom hallway in front of his mother and 9-year-old sister, shipped off to a detention center in Texas. Cenk, I'm gonna throw to you in a second, but we do need to break down the facts here because it's incredible, it's significant. The cruelty does seem to be deliberate. The mother, according to the LA Times, and her 2 kids fled Honduras after what the lawsuit describes as imminent, menacing death threats. 6-year-old son had already endured 2 years of chemo treatments for acute lymphoblastic leukemia. They did exactly what asylum seekers are told to do. They waited in Mexico. They applied legally through the app, the CBP1 app. They were granted parole into the United States. So there you have it. Did everything right. They had a court hearing in LA. That was on May 29th. After the judge dismissed their case, plainclothes ICE agents were waiting in the hallway. They grabbed all 3 in front of everyone. 6-year-old boy, terrified, he urinated on himself, remained in those wet clothes for hours. Nobody gave him a change of clothes. The mother and the children were crying in fear. And then they were flown to San Antonio, transported to a detention center in Dilley, Texas, where they remain in prison. Cruel is a word we're using a lot lately for good reasons, but it just seems like the depths of it. It's like, how low can you go? I still think there's more room to go with what's going on here, Jay.
Yeah, so here's what American people are not interested in: cruelty. I don't know when Stephen Miller and Donald Trump and Steve Bannon are gonna get it through their dumbass heads, right? So they think that everyone is just as cruel as they are, so they do the projection. But no, what American people wanted was justice. And so were they frustrated? Yes. Did they feel like, hey, we're having to pay for everything? Whether it's the undocumented immigrants or the foreign aid and all of this stuff. And we never get anything. We're always giving out, but we never get anything. Well, I follow all the rules. And now all of a sudden, with the crime was on the rise and everybody's crossing the border, and it felt like no one else has to play by the rules, and they were pissed. And that's why they elected Trump. But they didn't elect him to chase after 6-year-old leukemia patients. But the dumbass doesn't know that. So he just keeps doing this to make 20% of the country, his base, the radical right, happy. And they are. They love this. They're like, this is what we voted for. Okay, congratulations. But 80% of the rest of us don't agree. And I know in their bubble, they think everyone is just as cruel as they are. Sorry, guys, we're not. We're not the radical right. And so Rogan agrees, we agree. It doesn't matter. You could do a poll on it. You'll see. If you think the American people really want you to chase down people who've been living here 10, 20 years, find their 6-year-olds, treat them like crap, find out they have leukemia, and don't let them go back to get treatment, you're nuts. The American people are not that cruel.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious what the game plan is in terms of Stephen Miller, where he literally had a meeting. This is reported. He had a meeting with ICE officials and said, why are you guys going after criminals? Go to Home Depot. So literally, the game is over. This idea that there are these hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of horrible criminal immigrants out there that we're just dying to get rid of, as the Trump administration, we've already dispense with that pretext. It's over for that. And and it's cliche to say it, but the cruelty is the point in terms of it's part of the actual game plan. They know net immigration, net deportations right now, I think they're at 200,000. That's in 6 months. They were on pace of 400,000 for the year. That would be less than 2 million. If you extrapolate that over 4 years, that's not what they sold to the people who wanted to see a reduction in the migrant population. And so their thinking is that they gotta do stuff so outlandish, so ghoulish, that folks will quote unquote self-deport. And that's literally the point of all of this. They want people thinking like, oh my God, they'll even kick out a cancer patient. So I might as well just go back to where I came from. And so, we can't be surprised. But people are standing up and people are making their voices heard. But yeah, in the meantime, there's just going to be more just ghoulish, behavior from this administration.
Let me give you the government's defense real quick. Tricia McLaughlin, DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, claimed the boy's case had already been thrown out by an immigration judge and that the family is, quote, not being denied emergency care, but they were denied the ability to keep a scheduled cancer checkup. That was on June 5th. Mother's attorney says ICE did nothing to monitor her son's condition for days after the arrest. 6-year-old child has leukemia, not a national security threat. Sick little boy, just started learning English, going to public school in LA. Family was living with relatives in the area. They were doing things the right way. Kate Gibson Kumar, who is a staff attorney for the Texas Civil Rights Project's Beyond Borders program, represents the family. She argues their detention violated constitutional protections, specifically the 4th and 5th Amendments, guaranteeing due process, preventing unlawful seizures. Her statement to the LA Times, they followed the process, went where they were supposed to go, did everything that was asked of them, and they're being punished for it. So, final thoughts here. This is not, I saw today that the Bush Institute put out a statement on immigration and how half of the people detained, and you talked about the numbers, Woes, but half of the people detained, at least, no criminal record, nothing. Like you said, Jen, it's not what anyone signed up for. No one signed up for this.
Yeah. So look, they had a legal right to be here, and they say, oh yeah, I know, but we got to beat Obama's record, which I'll tell you about in a second, okay? And then but you have to realize there's a second disastrous part of this. They showed up for an asylum hearing like they were supposed to. They're following the law and the rules. They're like, okay, we were told to come back to court, and they came back to court. Perfect, that's what we want. But they've now been snatching people up from court like that all the time. This is one of many stories we've reported like this. So what is that going to lead to? Nobody's going to show up to court anymore. So if they got paroled inside the country, you'd be nuts to show up to an asylum hearing or to any kind of immigration proceeding, because they're not going to have that proceeding. They're just going to detain you and then send you back. So it's going to be counterproductive. And all of this because Obama once had around 430,000 people in 1 year that he sent back. And they can't seem to beat that record. So Stephen Miller's in this sweaty mess, like, I have to beat Obama. So how did Obama do it? Back then there wasn't sanctuary cities, there was a program called Secure Cities. They could lobby to bring that back, and they could say, hey, that happened under Obama. That would be a rational way to do it. No, God forbid. And then he would process them at the border. But that involves processing them. And they're like, oh, what a pain in the ass to process them and then to remove them. No, just follow the law. Obama followed the law and deported more than you guys did. That's why they called him the deporter in chief. But the second problem they have, they can't solve. Back then there was a lot more people coming. Now there's less people coming. So since there's less people coming, even if they did exactly what Obama did, they couldn't get to his number. So that's why they're having to go pick up cancer patients and kids and start kidnapping people from the middle of the country that have been here for a long, long time. We said send the criminals back. That's what the American people said. When you do this, you lose your popularity. The only good news I see out of this is it'll make their immigration policy so unpopular that it'll cost them in the long run. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.